Greetings to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for Research Day 2025. My name is Thomas Ward. I want to welcome and thank all of you for coming and thank all those who made this evening possible. I serve as Professor of Peace and Development Studies here at HJI, and I had the privilege this year of also helping to coordinate this evening's event. So I'd like to just take a few moments before we jump into the heart of the event to say a few things about its significance and why we do this on a year-to-year basis. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so welcome to Research Day 2025 for a second time. And I'd like to thank those who played a key role in this evening's program. I'm talking about our Research Day judges, led by our president, Dr. Thomas Walsh, and also Dr. Katerina Connery, the president of Women's Federation for World Peace, USA, and also an adjunct assistant professor here at HJI. Likewise, Dr. Frederick Swartz, who also is an adjunct professor here at HJI and is dean of the Bridgeport International Academy. And likewise, Dean Boyd, who is both the Dean of Admissions and Enrollment Management here and Student Services here at HJI, and who also is a lecturer in our institution. And we're grateful to all of them who took the time to review the posters that you'll have a chance to learn about this evening. Dr. Walsh will take some time to talk about that a bit more. I'd also like to thank our special invited speaker this evening, Dr. James Fleming. He's a 1982 HJI divinity graduate from HJI, and you'll hear more about Dr. Fleming from Dr. Walsh in just a few minutes. And also we'll have a chance to listen to a presentation by Dr. Fleming, which is really we're very grateful that we have a chance to hear from him tonight. We're celebrating this year the 50th anniversary of HJI. It's already been 50 years since Father and Mother Moon back in September of 1975 started this revered institution. And certainly two of the key reasons for starting HJI were both to engage Christianity and other faiths and also to engage academia. Back in 1967, True Father spoke about what is the essence of a human being. And we know humankind by the term Homo sapiens. And Homo sapiens emphasizes the intellectual dimension of the human being as being primal. However, back in 1967, Father Moon said, the reality is that the most important dimension of a human being is not the intellect, but is in fact emotion. And that's the part that has to be developed. But because we live in a world that somehow was corrupted at its inception, what took on priority was the intellect instead. And in this process of working towards what we refer to within divine principle as restoration, the role of the intellect is very important in terms of persuading others about the direction in which humankind has to go today. Figures such as St. Paul, Irenaeus of Lyon, Augustine of Hippo, Thomas Aquinas, John Calvin, and so many others, they played a key role in helping, in deepening humankind's appreciation and understanding of the providence and of where humankind had to go. And one of the key dimensions of their work was this emphasis of reaching and touching the intellect of humanity and showing the truth of what Christianity represented. We in HJI over the years have had our own, I'd say, types of Augustines, if you will, individuals that have taken the teachings and the thoughts of Reverend Moon and they've made them concrete, and they've helped us to be able to apply them to various types of problems and issues. each of them in their own way. Dr. Jonathan Wells, who dealt so much with the question of evolution and really the question of God or no God. Dr. James Fleming, who has spent so much of his time dealing with issues that are related to the third blessing and the way in which humankind is meant to interface with the environment in order to preserve it and to pass it on to future generations. Dr. Stephen Post, who played a very critical role in the very early years of our movement when we dealt with so many issues related to the accusations of that were brought forward against us by the programmers. Others as well have played a major role. I think about people such as Dr. Michael Mickler, who's with us today, who has been really the major figure in terms of archiving and really keeping abreast all the developments in our church over the past 50 years. And he's done really very, very important work in that area. And likewise, Mr. Bento Leo, an early graduate of HJI, who has had a bestseller dealing with the whole area of human relationships. Think also of Dr. Kathy Winings and the leadership role that she played for so many years in the area of religious education here in the United States, even serving as the president of the Religious Educators Association here in America. All of these figures, I feel, they point to both the role that scholars played in the mainstreaming of Christianity, and likewise they play an important role in somehow pointing to the new truth that comes to us based upon the teachings of our true parents. And so it's in that sense that we have this annual research day, because really God doesn't need just one Jim Fleming or just one Jonathan Wells. God needs many of them. And really, where's that going to come from? Well, we think that one of the main sources of that has to be HJI. That's what True Parents created this for, to be able to begin a dialogue with scholars and to begin a dialogue with Christianity and with the other great faiths of the world. So in that respect, I'm happy to welcome you to HJI's 2025 Annual Research Day, which is really meant to foster that spirit and that commitment to engage in a dialogue which goes beyond the dialogue amongst ourselves. It's my pleasure at this time to introduce our president, who also served as our main judge in this year's competition. And I want to applaud Dr. Walsh because of the important work that he has been doing in terms of this whole area of sharpening the academic dimension and focus of HJI and really encouraging further development with the with research within our community. Dr. Walsh has been very involved in an ongoing revival of academic conferences here at HJI. We've had a number of very important conferences over these past couple of years under his leadership. He has also taken leadership to establish an HJI press, where we are publishing books. We'll have 3 books published in this academic year. He has also taken on the leadership of the International Journal of Peace and Public Leadership, which reaches out to scholars around the world on topics related to the responsibility of public leadership in the furtherance of peace. And also in collaborations with the broader academic community in a whole variety of venues. For example, we are currently in the process of developing a text in conjunction with CESNR under Dr. Walsh's leadership, which will be an important text dealing with issues that are related to religious liberty and to the particular situation of Holy Mother Han and other Korean religious leaders who currently face incredible challenges because of the political climate and confusion that exists at this time of transition in Korea. So I want to thank all of you for coming, and I want to thank Dr. Walsh for guiding this particular project, for supporting it, and also for the important role that he's played in terms of the leadership and choosing the best research projects for this year. So without further ado, Dr. Walsh, the floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ward. That was an inspiring introduction, especially the part about me. No, just kidding. No, no, very well done and sincerely encouraging. Even on occasions when Holy Mother Han, True Mother, would encourage me about HJI, she would refer to many of those scholars that you mentioned, and that's who our students should emulate, not just to be brainy or profoundly intelligent and well-read and studied, but making impact on the wider world. I think that's really what she hopes and expects from all of us. And those who are participating in this evening's program are making that effort. And as well as those that you identified, I really appreciate you highlighting many of our alumni, and there are many others to add to that group, and more to come. So what I'd like to do now, because we're leading up to the announcement of the winners, and I guess I'd begin by saying I think everybody that participated in this program in the research day is a winner. These are excellent presentations. I'm going to just share my screen and kind of just walk you through the slides that kind of briefly introduce each of our participants. And I start here with three. We have three faculty participants. Two have entered fully. Dr. Ward has recused himself, so to speak. He's not in the running for the competition. But begin with Dr. Dietrich. He's the chair of our Doctor of Ministry program, originally from the Côte d'Ivoire in Africa, and he earned his DMin degree here at HJI and joined the faculty, and he chairs our Doctor of Ministry program and has been teaching both in the Doctor of Ministry programs, but also in the Peace Studies program. And this particular bit of research that he intends to publish in the Journal of Conflict Resolution is about symbolism and archetypal evil, a deep penetrating analysis of that, and it's the kind of psychology of violence. So it's an excellent presentation and bit of research. We're very happy that we have on our faculty Dr. Michael Mickler. He's our distinguished professor of historical troubles and historical studies, and he's taken up an issue that's in our hearts and on our minds at present, related to our movement in South Korea and especially our True Mother. And the title is South Korea's Troubled Prosecutors Tradition. And it's a deep dive into problems, not only contemporary, but what has been a longstanding tradition and much to be desired in this troubled prosecutor, meaning the Justice Department's prosecutors. And I think this is not only important for all of us observing today, but also for our wider movement. Will benefit from this research, which he hopes to publish perhaps in bitter winter, perhaps with Chesner, the Society of Study of New Religious Movements, but also possibly the International Journal for Peace and Public Leadership. Thirdly, representing our faculty is none other than Dr. Thomas J. Ward. He is chair of the program in Peace Studies, the Master of Arts Peace Studies, and Professor of Peace and Development, and as we know, former president of this great institution. And he did research, how can we better explain and understand Holy Mother Han? I think we all feel that, and I think Dr. Ward has taken that on to kind of get the right story out, to get the story straight, to present the narrative about who True Mother is and what she has accomplished, and the great travesty that is currently underway in Korea. So these are our three faculty. Again, Dr. Ward is not competing in this enterprise, but has nevertheless contributed a very wonderful piece of research here. Now to our students in alphabetical order. We have Susan Bouachri. She's in our Master of Divinity program, and she has done a study of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, especially something that she titles The Great Debate, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Pacifism. And this has also had appearance in an earlier form in the Journal of Unification Studies in 2023. So we're very happy that Mrs. Bouachri has contributed this important piece of research. We also have a wonderful presentation from our student from Cambodia, Sophal Chamroeun, MA in Peace Studies program about peace and reconciliation, Cambodia's experience. And he included a number of pictures from Cambodia and the peace process that moved, particularly under Prime Minister Hun Sen, from the so-called killing fields at the time of Pol Pot to a stabilized nation that is developing well and is an important anchor nation of stability in Southeast Asia. We're happy to have Sophal as our student in the Peace Studies program. Next, we have Mr. Bruce Clarke. He is in our Doctor of Ministry program, and he has been working on a project in intergenerational worship. And the title is Intergenerational Worship Grounded in Unification Theology. He does acknowledge the work of Dr. Mika Desautels, who recently graduated from the DMIN program, but they have collaborated at our church in the University of Bridgeport. And I know that's making impact on my own church here at Belvedere. So it's a very important contribution to Research Day from Bruce Clarke. Next is Mr. James B. Edgerly, also in our Doctor of Ministry program, and his important topic is entitled The Post-Protestant Thesis, Part 2, Evangelical Protestantism as the Basis for a New Cultural Consensus, and is examining the prospect for evangelical Protestantism to kind of lead the way toward a consensus that could work to bring together a cultural consensus in America and perhaps more widely. So very important contribution from Mr. Reverend Edgerly. And next, I want to acknowledge Giorgio Gasparoni, who's been a past winner of this Research Day from San Marino, and an MA student in our Religious Studies program, did an important study of water, peace, and shared prosperity in the Sahel region. That's in Africa, just in between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. From threat multiplier to cooperation catalyst. It's a very, very in-depth study, very well done, and my appreciation in learning a lot from this area. We've had a number of programs in this region in Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, particularly with UPF, and Mother Moon was in Niger just a couple of years ago and officiated a blessing there. Next is Jovencio Gulayao from the Philippines, another MA in Religious Studies program student, and his title is Exploring the Practical Effects of the Heavenly Tribal Messiah Mission on Family and Community. That he is made in this research demonstrates that not only does Heavenly Tribal Messiah Mission have some spiritual value, but it has impact on the wider community, practical impact and positive impact on the family and community. We have a entry from Thomas Krasowski from Poland, another student in our MA in Religious Studies program, on the centric model of moral evaluation, and he leads us through a study that yields this concept of an ethical utopia that he defines as utopia, and brings in theory of moral development to a higher and higher consciousness, and a gradually maturing and evolving moral consciousness. Very, very well done, as are all of these. And I'm proud to mention a current student of mine, a new student to HJI. We're very happy that we have about a dozen new students from Africa who have enrolled this past year. He has taken on, and he's from Tanzania, the topic of human rights and democracy in sub-Saharan Africa, a case study of Tanzania. They've recently had an election there. There's been a lot of stress and turmoil there related to that election, and he's examining this in a very sophisticated way. The course that Robeson is taking, Robeson and Domba, is on the United Nations and civil society here at HJI. And finally, I'm very happy to introduce the work of Roger Revelle from the USA in our MA in Religious Studies program. He took up the topic, the decline and evolution of Marxist-Leninist materialism from 1985 to 2025, kind of looking at the history. Why did Marxist-Leninist theory not result in the kind of outcome that was predicted, and how is it adapting and adjusting, and how does it manifest itself today? So a very, very important study. So these are our participants, our contributors. They're very impressive. We as judges that Dr. Ward introduced, Dr. Frederick Schwartz, Dean Stephen Boyd, and Dr. Katerina Connery did a great job. We met on several occasions. We would go through for each of these posters, there's a 10 to 12 minute video presentation that we all reviewed and got together. And it's very hard to make a decision about these because they really are all impressive. And I think that's our consensus view. But nevertheless, we do have to announce the winners. So that's my task at this point. So I would like to announce first the winner from the faculty section, and acknowledging or mentioning once again, Dr. Ward did not participate in the competition. So we had these two very fine presentations, one from Dr. Yusa Kone and one from Dr. Michael Mickler. And we discussed both of these at some length, and we remained, I would say, in consensus that there was a tie between these two. So we have a split award this time, and we therefore want to express to these two faculty members being the winners of this year's Research Day on behalf of the faculty, Dr. Drissa Kone and Dr. Michael Mickler. If you give them a round of applause. And you want to say a brief word, maybe just acknowledge your success tonight.
Yeah, of course, I can say something. Thank you very much. Well, I want to say to Dr. Mickler that he trained me well. So he's my professor. He was my professor. So 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 I'm very happy to be able to contribute to that level and compete. For me, it's just a contribution on area that I'm passionate about. And yeah, I want to thank you, the judges, for the decision you have made, and thank you to all those who participated. Thank you again, everyone. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Coney. Dr. Mickler.
Yeah, I want to, it's been an honor to participate for the second time. Dr. Coney and I faced off 2 years ago, and he's improved. He's elevated up this time. So congratulations, Dr. Coney, for sharing the wealth here. And thank you to HJI, especially Dr. Ward, who's initiated this research day as a tradition here at HJI. And has supported it with great vigor. And thanks to our esteemed institution for creating this forum in which we can engage. I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to dig in a little bit to the situation in South Korea and understand the background better, and the problems that they have over there dealing with their prosecutor tradition and how it's become too inquisitional. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and thank you to the judges and to everyone here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Coney and Dr. Mickler, and congratulations. Great, great, great work. Very important work as well. And now, the difficult task of announcing the winner from among these 9 excellent students, inspiring students. And after a lot of deliberation and sincere study and review of the video presentations and the poster itself and its content, we arrived at a decision of a winner by a very, very thin margin, but a well-deserving winner. And that winner is none other than Mr. Bruce Clarke. Please, let's express appreciation. Congratulations, Mr. Bruce Clarke.
Well, thank you. I'm a little surprised. I had a lot of trouble submitting, and I felt it was hitting a spiritual wall. I can't explain it, but I maybe overcame all those difficulties, and I persevered because I really believe in this research. I really want to thank Family Church of Connecticut and Pastor Simone for allowing me the time and the space to take over a lot of Sundays over the past year and a half, and of course working with Dr. Mika Desotel for a year and a half. We are an intergenerational partnership, and it works. And I really have valued her a lot of the insights and friendship that has just expanded. So thank you so much to HJI and to the professors, including the 2 winners tonight, who have inspired me a lot during the course of my dissertation work. So thank you, Dr. Mickler. Thank you, Dr. Coney.
Congratulations, Bruce. I do want to acknowledge that we did arrive at just kind of, we call it our honorable mention, or a first and second runner-up, and although not winners per se, but as I said, everyone who participated is a winner. But I'd like to acknowledge as our first runner-up, Mr. James Edgerly, whose presentation and poster was also eminently worthy and distinguished and impressive. And the second runner-up, Mr. Giorgio Gasparoni. So let's also congratulate these 2 of our great colleagues. Maybe a brief word, Reverend Edgerly and Giorgio.
Well, thank you for awarding me the runner-up. It was a really great experience putting this together. And I appreciate the opportunity that HJI gives to all of us to have the pleasure of doing this important research on these topics that our movement brings to the fore. I think Bruce and I, people like Bruce and I, and I'm sure everybody here feels so enriched by just the incredible intellectual opportunity that unificationism brings to all of us. And I'm very happy and proud to be part of the HJI community, which has been so inspiring to me. And I want to thank everyone for giving us this chance to work on our areas of interest. Thank you to the judges. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Giorgio from
Okay.
San Marino, you're a little bit late. Sorry to keep you up.
No, it's okay. Okay, I try to find the words. It's not easy for me. I'm so honored to be here and to be part of HJI. What only I can say that the project I choose about all is a tribute to a bond with Africa that began in my teens and continues to guide my search for cooperative, dignity-centered solutions. When I joined in the 70s the university in Rome, I wanted to go there to give my contribution to Africa. Then I joined the Unification movement and my plan changed completely. But still, that love remained there. And thanks to the AJI, I could at least make this research. Often I write on the magazine Voices of Peace about different topics about Africa. So thanks a lot. And I'm so honored and glad about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gasparoni. Well done to both of you and to all of our 9 contributors to this research day. You made us proud as HJI faculty and our wider community. I do want to mention that the 9 students, based on the quality of your work, and because HJI is a member of the Theta Alpha Kappa Honor Society, that is the honor society for programs in religious studies and theology, that we will present a certificate of recognition and appreciation from our chapter for your accomplishments in this research day. So thank you once again, all of our great HJI students. And now we move to a very important component of our program, which is to kind of embody or personify in a fuller way this whole concept of people that are doing research and contributing to the wider expansion of knowledge and in the wider world. And as Dr. Ward eloquently introduced that topic, I want to give a little more background on Dr. James Fleming, who will be our keynote speaker. He was on the faculty at Colby College in Maine for, I think, 30-some years, 33 years. And he was the Charles A. Dana Professor of Science, Technology, and Society, now emeritus, meaning distinguished, but having retired from that active role. And his department was the Department of Science, Technology, and Society. His academic background included a Bachelor of Science in Astronomy from Penn State University, a Master's of Science in Atmospheric Science, Colorado State University, an MA in the History of Science from Princeton University, and his doctorate in history from Princeton University. And of course, He is a graduate of HJI, then UTS, and went to school with Dr. Ward, was in the same class, and with we learned, or I learned today, with Dr. Frederick Swartz, one of the judges, but it did not influence, of course, Dr. Fleming wasn't competing, but he wanted to be here tonight, but was not feeling well. But Dr. Fleming, if you look on Wikipedia or Google him, you'll find that he has many, many impressive publications, books such as Fixing the Sky, Columbia University Press in 2010, Globalizing Polar Science, Palgrave, 2010, Historical Perspectives on Climate Change, Oxford University Press, 1998, Meteorology in America, 1800 to 1870, Johns Hopkins Press. These are major publishing companies. He more recently a book, Inventing Atmospheric Science, from MIT Press, 2016. And in 2020, a book entitled First Woman, Joanne Simpson and the Tropical Atmosphere. He also has recently published an important work in the International Journal on Peace and Public Leadership. I'm proud to consider him a friend and a brother in the providence of making this a better world and a more heavenly world. So we look forward to hearing from Dr. Fleming, and we will have a few minutes for Q&A. Maybe we'll have time for about 3 questions after Dr. Fleming's presentation. So Dr. James Fleming, you have the floor, sir.
Wow, thank you very much. Let me say I'm honored and humbled to be with this group, and really inspired, and very happy to be invited to address you. I'll see if I can keep it relatively to the point. Thanks to the organizers for this. And I'm also humbled by Dr. Thomas Ward to have been canonized tonight with the likes of Irenaeus, who I'll mention. I hope to inspire you, and whatever your field and focus, I hope that you can think big. I know this HJI does really think big, and I hope you can also aim high. And I know you will. Let me put on some screen sharing with this little green button. And I'm not sure if that's up or not.
Not yet.
I'm clicking on things here.
Something's happening. There we go.
Okay, so the topic tonight, I'm calling it, with a question mark, irreconcilable climate differences, roots of the problem and pathways to civil discourse. And this presentation is very close to, but not exactly the same as, the article I put in the IJPPL earlier this year. And it has some updates. It has updates as of today, because this field is really developing very quickly. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about climate change. And I was hearing some of the other topics about water in the Sophal, and all sorts of really big ideas about Cambodian peace, etc. And this is a big topic. I think climate is a topic that it's like culture. It's very complex and it's very large, and it affects everyone. So climate change is a pressing issue. It's a complex, extremely complex scientific issue. It's a social and cultural issue, and often that's neglected in some of the discussion. It's a humanitarian issue with climate needy and refugee issues, and it's a politically polarized issue. This is one of the focus tonight of the sort of the left-right divide on climate change. And it's also geographically polarized between the North and the South, and between the Western world and the Eastern world. And so I want to address the roots of some of the climate change discourse issues. It's a cultural issue, as I said, with deep historical roots. And I'm going to try to uncover some of those roots tonight. And no one has done that so much, linking current climate issues to their deeper cultural roots, and I intend to do so in this presentation. And I draw on the history of environmental determinism and climate-related anxiety and try to give you a nuanced understanding of the factors shaping today's debates. I think they're very, very deep and very, very rooted in philosophies of the past. And the aim is to move beyond ideological entrenchment and cultivate a more constructive, informed, and balanced conversation aimed at establishing pathways to civil discourse. We're not there yet, but pathways need to be established for better cooperation and responsible environmental stewardship. I had a research project that took me quite a while to come up with an apt metaphor for my study on climate change. And I landed on the term apprehension. And looking at the definition of apprehension, it can mean awareness or understanding, not necessarily clear understanding, but apprehending something maybe in a dimly illuminated way. And so fix not too rashly upon your first apprehensions comes from the Oxford English Dictionary. And I'm going to call this A1. This is the attempt to understand something that's much bigger than any individual. An astronomer could put their telescope on a particular star. They can be alone on a mountaintop. They can make some observations, but we can't do that with the climate. We have to work together. It's too diffuse and too universal. So we can only be aware of it, or we can apprehend it. A second definition is fear or dread. And we fear things that sometimes when we apprehend things, we feel apprehensive about those things. And so the second meaning, I'm going to call this A2, is the fear of climate change. And that's one of the major narratives today, is the fear of an existential collapse of civilization and things like that. Before that, there was volcano weather, and there's all sorts of fears about the lack of crops and the cold. So the third one is intervention. Apprehending, you get apprehended by the gendarmes if you're over the speed limit, and trying to control climate. And I'm going to call that A3, although I'm not going to dwell on it too much, although some people talk about it very much today. So with those kinds of three aspects of apprehension, let's take a look at A1, which is an iconic rise of carbon dioxide measured on Mauna Loa. This goes all the way back to 1958 in the International Geophysical Year. But this rise of the so-called Keeling curve is kind of an icon of the modern environmental movement, as if CO2 was one of the only factors. It's not the only factor in climate change, but this is certainly our current understanding of it in the late 20th and current 21st century. And there's also this cover of the New York Times. This was the day I moved to Maine from Washington, D.C., when James Hansen at the Congress had said global warming has begun. And this was a few tenths of a degree change in temperature, rising temperatures. And this is also iconic understanding of our current situation with warmer and more disturbed weather in the early 21st century. So that's A1, basically. A2 is the fear that something has been added to the weather, and the worst is yet to come. This is a 1950s cartoon, but it still speaks to the fear that something is wrong out there, and that the people that are wrong are us, the collective efforts of civilization, which is polluting the atmosphere. And then there's the intervention, A3. And that was a book I wrote, but I couldn't resist this technocrat pulling the levers of control and trying to change the weather sort of as a one-off. And I use the technological fix as kind of a theme in that. That's A3. Okay, and the discourse has been really mixed. There's people that say the science is settled, we shouldn't do any more research. Most reasonable people say it's extremely complex. There's always new things to learn. And then there's the naming of the global cooling, global warming, climate change, climate disruption. And the little kid there is putting on the blackboard, it's called the weather. So there's a very varied discourse and very uncivil currently discourse about climate change. I think fresh air and sunshine is needed in this kind of thing. And often we get mediated stories, not from scientists so much themselves, but by the media. I actually had a colleague who wrote a book called Meteorology, in which it's being portrayed in the news and in the TV. But they're often one-sided and biased views from a particular narrative. There's a lot of name calling, and there's cancel culture. There's a cancel culture that was active today, and I put it in my final slide there. And the discourse is simply not healthy and productive. Now, I think HJI is involved in healthy and productive discourse, and you're facing a lot of issues that are contentious. And so I think that this might, even if you're not going to become a climatologist, which I doubt, I would hope to inspire you to look for pathways for civil discourse. I think that's partly what you're all about. And explorations of the complexity, the extraordinary complexity, are sorely needed, not declarations that the science is settled and there's no more need to do any more research. Climate is a universal issue. I think that's pretty well known. It involves the collective activities of us all. It embraces us. We live in climates. It is anthropological. That is, it relates to our being, to our human nature. And I appreciated the anthropology earlier today in the introductions. It's anthropogenic. That is, it's caused by human activities as well as natural phenomena. And I think that that's another kind of anthro aspect of climate. And it's anthropomorphic. It's often given human personality or characteristics. And calling the weather angry, for example, during a storm is an anthropomorphism. So we often anthropomorphize the climate as well as live within it. I like the definition of climate as sort of the fabric of our lives. It's all embracing, it's all surrounding, and it can be used and misused and often mediated by people that haven't really studied it. It's much more than average weather. And the climate, society, and culture are intertwined. There's a book called Key Words by Raymond Williams, and he has the word culture in the book, but he doesn't have the word climate. And I think there should be a relationship between culture and climate that's more clearly defined. Climate helps to condition where we live, what we eat, what we wear, and fundamentally what we choose to do, and a whole bunch of other things. Affects the air we breathe, the air in our lungs, the air in the global commons, the food we eat, the things we drink, our health, and the stability of communities and economies. Climate shapes agricultural practices. There's even evidence that shapes religious sentiments and perceptions of vulnerability. There's an interesting study about the Yahweh in the mountains and Elohim in the valleys of Israel. And it does shape the sentiments that people have and hold. I'm going to go into that roots in antiquity, because climate in the past was thought to only depend on the height of the sun above the horizon. The sun is now below the horizon in the Arctic Circle. And it also depended on the slope of the land. The habitable zones were only located between the overly frigid poles and the overly torrid equatorial zone. So only in the middle was the climate acceptable to the ancients. Hippocrates' tradition linked human health and climate, and illness was attributed to an imbalance in bodily fluids, the four humors, and also to exposure. There was no term called environment in the past. It was exposure to the seasonal changes, other different aspects of airs, waters, and places. And some places were more healthy than others, and the best places to live were in the temperate regions of the earth. Now, Aristotle held that very strong opinions about climate and culture and character. He said that people from a cold climate, as in Northern Europe, are, quote, full of spirit, but wanting in intelligence and skill. Although they're afraid, they lack political organization and are incapable of governing others. They are fierce and dangerous. And this attitude stuck. I mean, this was Aristotle's philosophy. He dominated philosophy for about 2 millennia. And this climate and character equation kind of stuck to the way of thinking, in which, on the other hand, he said, those from hot regions, especially the natives of Asia, are intelligent and inventive, but they're wanting in spirit and therefore always in a state of lassitude and subjection. Climate determinism has been transmitted by generations of scholars and became a kind of a perennial philosophy that reinforced attitudes of cultural superiority and disdain for others. And I think this climate determinism is perennial and has raised its ugly head in various eras, including the 18th and 19th centuries, now the 20th, and in some ways the 21st. And I also think it's gotten sort of mapped onto politics as well as origins. I did a study of Abbé Dubois. He was the permanent secretary of the French Academy. He sponsored many great scholars into the French Academy in the 18th century. And he wrote a book about poetry and painting, critical reflections on poetry and painting. And without going into detail, his main thesis was that genius is not born in every climate. It was born in ancient Rome. It was born in ancient Greece. It was born in the Italian Renaissance. And of course, it was born in his own age of Louis XIV. And like the wine of a valley, the best life in France was that, according to Dubois, was that lived in a particular wine producing region, eating the bread, breathing the air, and certain eras were more productive than others. And so it wasn't just the region, but it was the time of the fluorescence of culture. There are certain high points. This influenced a lot of people, like David Hume, the Baron Montesquieu, and even Thomas Jefferson. And there was an Enlightenment nexus of thinking about this that got across the Atlantic to the American climate, which was being settled rapidly and dramatically. And that was changing the climate and changing the American climate to make it more fit for the European type civilization that was taking hold there and less suitable for what they called more primitive cultures. Jefferson took on this topic. This weekend, I was with the editor of the Jefferson Papers, and we talked about how measurements of the American climate had to begin, and this was in the 1810s, 20s, before the climate had changed too drastically, and these measurements should be repeated at regular intervals. Jefferson thought it would be about every 50 years. We happen to think it's about every microsecond. So determinism became a pernicious and perennial philosophy. As you find in Frederick Ratzel's Anthropogeography, which promoted climate determinism. And the remnants of that are still with us today. This is from the late 19th century. But the argument was that the physical environment, especially geography and climate, influenced our societies. And Ratzel introduced the concept of Lebensraum, living space. That later was misused by the Nazis. And it also reached an American geographer named Ellsworth Huntington, who wrote a lot of books. And he wrote one called Civilization and Climate, which argued for climatic energy, that there were not just climatic zones, but there was climatic energy, like Dubois had said about creative spirit, that really allowed to energize people. And Huntington, who lived between New Haven and Cambridge, Massachusetts, thought that that was the best climatic energy in the world, because that's where he lived. Now, the United Nations Environmental Program, that now into the 20th century, 21st century, it clearly says in its website that climate change will impact different cultures in different ways. So there's a remnant of climatic determinism. produce winners and losers, and it maps the losers to be predominantly southern or developing nations, and the winners, the people that might win out on climate change, to be more from the north. So this is still a part of the perennial philosophy, not as prominent, but it's underneath an underlying theme. This is from Huntington's book, Civilization and Climate. It shows a healthy northern children picking apples and making cider on a fruit farm in the United States. It says scenes of this kind are almost unknown except where the climate is healthful and stimulating. And so there's a clear remnant. And Huntington worked in World War I studies of Italy, comparing the southern Italy with northern Italy and applying this kind of determination. Another image in his book is of lassitude, an Indian coolie trying to sleep at the same time cool his British rulers working a punkah or fan. The man's feeling of lassitude, anemia, and sleepiness is typical of steadily warm, moist climates. Even the U.S. State Department uses terms like enervating and puts out area warnings for different places. Now, I make this move to what I call the politics of it. There's climate Manichaeans who are very shrill and deeply partisan, and they claim to represent climate science and journalism, and I call them the climate Manichaeans. I haven't heard them being called that by other people, but a Manichaean religious worldview, I think, as most of us know, it holds that the world's divided between good and evil, that salvation will occur through the forces of light winning out over the forces of darkness. The climate Manichaeans seek to destroy the careers of those who deviate from the accepted consensus. They hold that fossil fuel industry represents the force of darkness and endangers all of civilization. The question of whether human agency has contributed to environmental change, however, is not up in the air. It was answered in the affirmative millennia ago. We can change our climates. We change our clothes. We change our homes. We can change the area that we irrigate around the field. But more significant involves the magnitude and consequences of damage caused by anthropogenic stresses. And how do we find solutions, and how do we talk about it? We can't really perpetuate this Manichaean fight between the forces of good and evil. But in domestic and international politics, this Manichaeanism is mapped onto our domestic politics, with those identifying as true believers, and on the left and the right as true skeptics or even deniers. So there's a lot of name calling, as I said earlier. There's people that call people warmists, those who conjure the apocalypse with voices shrill and strident. There's so-called skeptics that say there's much more to learn. And even the term skeptic, which is a noble term for scientific debate, has been appropriated to say you must be a climate denier, which is like denying the Holocaust by analogy. And the deniers would say that the risks are exaggerated. The result is inaction. We haven't made much progress on climate policy. Or worse, there's the actual demonization and cancel culture in climate change. Just a little cartoon to... Okay, the United Nations is a major player in climate discourse, and their United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the so-called UNFCCC, it's aimed at preventing dangerous anthropogenic influence in the climate system. But that has not been well defined. We don't know what's dangerous. That's been left undefined, except recently there's talk about the 1.5 to 2 degree threshold of warming. The UNFCCC also supports the annual Conference of the Parties, the COPs, and their agreements, for example, the Kyoto Protocol, 1997, and the Paris Agreement, 2015, are non-binding and they lack enforcement. The COP meets every year and currently is meeting in Brazil. I'll get to that in a minute. But the last year's COP, COP29, there have been 29 meetings as of last year, Just 1 year ago, the COP29 held in Baku, Azerbaijan, was attended by 83,000 representatives of the United Nations, as well as non-governmental and organizations and related stakeholders. The delegations from the developing nations dwarfed those in number from those in the north, and the meetings spotlighted connections between climate change and global conflict. They focused on the developing nations seeking massive increases in funding from the developed world. But at the conclusion of COP29, many conference delegates and climate activists expressed their dissatisfaction with the process. Some from developing nations were hoping for, but didn't receive larger financial commitment from the West. And they left early in disgust. The meeting pretty much fell apart. Such was said at that time the sad state of climate discourse. As a result, some experts called for a rethinking of the structure of UN climate summits, which have been going on since 1995. They wanted to try something else, but a year came by and that we had a COP30, not without glimmers of hope. Although durable policy has not emerged from those fighting a perceived battle between good and evil, one hopeful development is the so-called Climate Verso podcast. You can find this online, which explores the complex, nuanced, and often contentious world of climate change through dialogue. And they usually have somebody who's on either side of the issue actually having a long debate. These are long podcasts where there would be a so-called climate skeptic and a so-called climate believer. And I think this podcast is a hopeful sign, although it's not completely a large-scale communication major channel yet. And very recently, the oft-repeated climate alarmist mantra that climate change is an existential threat has been called a chronic problem, not an existential threat, by the likes of Bill Gates, who brought us, the Microsoft problems too. Gates was a big supporter of geoengineering, which would be the A3 I talked about with climate intervention. But Gates recently said we should focus on other things like poverty and disease. So there's a few glimmers of hope. And this just happened last week. A trusted colleague lectured at Cornell University and had a wonderful time. He was with the Atkinson Institute for Sustainability, and he taught in classes and he met with students and he disagreed and they had meals and they had a really interesting interaction at Cornell. It's kind of like, I would make an analogy, it's maybe kind of like Turning Point USA on climate, working together on the college campus and talking about this stuff. What happened after the lecture? A well-known climate activist called for the firing the director of the Atkinson Institute for Sustainability, simply for hosting my colleague's visit. Now, there weren't any street demonstrations, there weren't any TV cameras there, but there was a pushback, and there's much more work to be done. And there's actually more because COP30 was meeting right now. It's just winding down in Belém, Brazil. And the leaders from US, China, and Japan are skipping this meeting, but the Taliban has a slot on the program. This is actually just today I found out that they adopted a declaration on information integrity, which is kind of like a misinformation doctrine to suppress any debate that goes against kind of a master narrative of climate urgency and apprehension. So there's my term apprehension coming back into the cycle. And the signatories of this declaration are government officials. They're not meteorologists. So I also think that in some ways the climate community has lost control of their narrative and it's gone into the public realm. It's gone to the pundits, it's gone to the politicians, it's gone to the officials. And so there's a much more work to be done, but there's some important glimmers of hope. So in summary, to wrap it up, ancient philosophers set the tone for environmental determinism, and it led to an animus between people from different regions and different environments. This was carried through the Enlightenment by Abbé Dubois and his followers and persists today. Since then, the climate of science changed. The climate of science, the science of climate has developed greatly. There's a lot more technology. There's a lot more scientific insight. Yet the culture of fear, suspicion, and perceived difference continues to poison the discourse, and it has been politicized. I think the atmosphere is too complex, and its influence cannot be reduced to technicalities or to slogans, to one item of interest. And the fabric of the global commons is too tightly woven to be torn asunder by perceived differences. So the path forward, and I put this in the article too, the solutions need to be irenic, not Manichaean, aimed at constructive discourse, reconciliation, not agonistic, not combative, not aggression. Can we eschew Manichaean themes and become more irenic? On our theme, peace starts with me. What else starts with me? Forgiveness, responsibility, accomplishment, attendance, unity, environmental stewardship, open discussion. So I'll leave that at that point as a challenge that we can take our major focus of peace starts with me and bring it into our fields of study and expertise. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. James Fleming. Very insightful presentation with great content. I like very much this concept I'd never heard used before about kind of environmental or weather-related determinism, and this use of the Manichaean idea of representing polarization. So and the analogy with what goes on in religion is also there, and how religion is sought to work through forms of interreligious dialogue, and that has had a great impact, but still there's a lot of uncivil discourse going on in the world of religion, particularly, as we know, toward minority religions, where there's a kind of cancel culture that we've experienced in Japan and Korea. But let's take just a couple of questions, because we're kind of at our limit, but I think everyone would like to hear just a couple of questions from our audience. Let me just check. Is there anyone want to ask a question? Can you
Well, I'm happy to ask the question if we don't have someone who's going to
good.
ask.
Thank you, Dr. Ward.
Well, thank you for a magnificent presentation, Dr. Fleming. You just completely destroyed my worldview. But anyway, it was I appreciate it. I just had a question for you. I mean, how much do you feel that your study at UTS, HJI, how much has that impacted upon the way in which you address these kinds of questions?
I would say profoundly. It has to be subtle, because I can't go into a climate discussion with the religious doctrine on my sleeve, but I do understand Arrhenius. I do understand Manichaeanism. And sometimes people accept my categories of people going beyond the pale and trying to argue for their point of view. And I think some of the great teachers I had at HJI in the past are very much with me. I recently put all of my seminary papers together on digitizing, and I'm going to make that part of a collection. I don't know what I'll do with it eventually, but rereading those was very inspiring. I reread them all probably in September.
Wow.
And it got me revved up. And plus the themes of our current ongoing movement, peace starts with me. How do we find peace and reconciliation, and not capitulation? And so sometimes students will say, well, if the world's going to fall apart, should I have children? Should I bother about having a family? And I launch right into the family values, and sure, you should go right in. The complexity issue is important too, because what we learned at seminary was it's a very complex conversation amongst the Eastern Orthodox, the Catholic perspective, the Protestant perspective, the multiplicity of traditions. And I said, this can't simply be a carbon dioxide with an emphasis on die, carbon dioxide, we're all going to die kind of issue. It's got to be much more complex with other factors, many more factors, especially the cultural factors involved. So in that sense, seminary was absolutely essential.
Thank you.
I'll just throw in that we are working on, continuing to develop our archive. So your collection of papers from your time at UPS, we would be interested in including our archive. So keep us in mind. I think we'll be sending something to all alumni too in the coming months.
They're actually waitlist because they're digitized, and
yeah.
About 50 of them, so.
Very good. I think we have time for another question. Any?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, Ron, I see you, but I also see Mike, Dr. Mickler, and Mary Marshall Moriarty. So can you make it brief?
Yes. When we talk about climate, you seem to assume a certain, people seem to assume a certain stability, that there are temperate zones and northern cold zones. But when you analyze something like the rise and fall of the Maya empires, Palenque, it is the dramatic climate change which has very often determined the decline of a certain civilization. And so it is sort of what we're going into today, where the climate is changing, that it is not stable. Do you have any insight into that fact?
Oh yeah, definitely. The Maya was a vast desiccation, issue with the lack of water for the Mayan civilization. The climate is always changing, whether it's civilization threatening or not is a question in different eras. So yes, I'd say the ancients assumed climatic zones: torrid, temperate, polar, and it was actually biblical in a sense. In Paradise Lost, there's a line about when after the fall of humans, God was so upset that he sent the angels to tip the Earth's axis on its side, so there would be seasons, and there would be change, and this is a world of change. And that's in Milton. That's in John Milton's work. And so I assume change. I assume it to happen. But I was referring in the talk to the ancient philosophies of people who were fierce came from mountains, and people who were gentle come from valleys, and there was a climatic determinism that was more locked in, and somehow that morphed into our politics. Or you can go to any discussion and people say, "Do you believe in global warming?" You can get in trouble in a few sentences with different people. And anyway, so that's kind of the short version.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Mary Marshall Moriarty, please be brief because we're running short on time.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming, for your presentation. Douglas, can you turn your... Sorry, we've got two computers happening here. Thank you for your presentation. I read your book, Fixing the Sky, and I've sort of done a little bit of research into geoengineering and its impact that it's having on the environment. A lot of people are completely unaware of the damage that it's doing to the natural environment. Just recently, there was an interview with Tucker Carlson and Dane Winkington. I don't know if you saw that, but it's really highlighted a lot of what's happening. I'm hoping the day can come when people can really wake up that this assault on our environment can be stopped because it's one of the biggest factors in causing the problems that's happening in our environment around the world, contaminating soil and air in every nation and affecting our food supply. But yeah, so how can we stop this? That's my question.
Okay, how do you stop it? Well, I call geoengineering geoscientific speculation. And nobody can do it. We don't have the technology to control the planet, and we don't have the wisdom to either. You can modify a cloud, but you can't control it. And so this is different than the so-called chemtrails conspiracy stuff. I recently was invited to speak at Congress in the Marjorie Taylor Greene situation, where she was calling for an end to weather control. And that turned out to be kind of a loose cannon. You know, there is no ability currently to control the Earth's climate, whether it's through chemicals or whether it's through radiation, or and you can't move hurricanes off their course and things like that. So I'm much of a realist when it comes to the massive power of the atmosphere, of the Earth, of the environment. The rotating differentially heated planet is really very large energy. And when we got bombs and we got rockets and we got computers, we thought we could control things, but I say we really can't. And that's hubris to think that you could.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Dr. Fleming. We'll let Dr. Mickler be the last question.
Well, I'm thrilled with all the references to church history, and I'm sure my previous church history professors at HJI, Warren Lewis and Constantine Serpanoulis, are similarly thrilled with references to Irenaeus and all of the others.
I believe universal salvation after studying with the Serpanoulis.
Yeah. Your fellow icon among unification scholars, Jonathan Wells, in the evolutionary debates, kind of made it his life mission to tilt at the Darwin's theory, essentially, and those that dogmatically held to it. So you had mentioned the Manichaean approach. There is an approach in Christian apologetics that is not only irenic, but also polemical. You might invoke Tertullian, for example, rather than the Manichaeans. And so I just wonder whether you take it as your mission to stay within your lane of serious scientific inquiry with peer scientists. In the interest of furthering more civil discourse, would you think about, taking on the Jonathan Wells style approach of tilting at these dogmatic climate determinists, or the ones that are politicizing climate and threatening careers and such as that? I was just wondering, in terms of your sense of vocation, you've already established your credentials and your career. You have nothing to worry about anymore. You can say whatever you want. But
they haven't got after me yet either. So
you could even tilt at unification, because we have a little bit of climate determinism in unification tradition. I think of the eastern side of Korea, which is the one side of Korea which is mountainous, and the other side which is flat, and one's more suitable to feminine spirituality and the other is more suitable to masculine spirituality and masculine groups. But anyway, the main question was how you conceive of your vocation at this point.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Thanks, Mike. Dr. Mickler. I'm going to get my Tertullian out again and take another look at it, but also it's Korean geography, because those are great points. I have a new paper out on Charles Darwin, and I'm a good friend of Jonathan Wells of blessed memory. Darwin established a natural basis for the theory of evolution, but if you look at the final page of The Origin of Species, he doesn't specify how things got started, you know. And so the fellow I'm studying is a Scottish geologist who was a correspondent of Darwin. His name was James Kroll. James Kroll brought the causation from the Earth, from terrestrial issues to celestial issues. He had the Earth orbiting and wobbling and changing. And Darwin, in the 5th edition of The Origin, Darwin thought that was a really great idea. So he brought this astronomical theory of climate change down to Earth. He saw it as a mechanism for rapid evolution, and he put it in The Origin of Species. And so there's kind of a Kroll-Darwin dialogue. Darwin died first, and Kroll then wrote his final book. It's called The Philosophical Basis of Evolution. And it's hard to find that book, but it's online. And Kroll argues as a good, I guess, Scottish religionist. He was with Jonathan Edwards, is kind of his inspiration. He argued that everything has to have a cause, including evolution. So he theorized and theologized the theory of evolution. And it's a different approach to coming at it, not tilting at Darwin, not denigrating Darwin, but saying he was what he was. He was limited in his argument. It was a brilliant argument that biologists today honor. And so you're not going to convince them that it's wrong. But there's more to it. There's a theological basis of causation that Kroll was after. And Kroll was a great scientist. So that's the approach that you could take, an alternate approach to Darwin and Kroll.
Very nice exchange there. Thank you both. We're gonna close things up now. Excellent program. I'm going to invite Dean Boyd just to say a few words, and then Dr. Ward, if you'd kind of close this out.
Well, thank you, Dr. Walsh, and thanks to everyone who came tonight, to Dr. Fleming, our presenter, all of you who presented your project or research proposals. I'm a student here at HJI. I happen to also be the Dean of Enrollment Management, and this year I was a judge on the panel of judges. And I just have to say personally, I'm particularly inspired by the level of scholarship and research and seriousness with which our students, and this is a wonderful sampling of them, put forth in their efforts in this competition. So those of you who are watching today, many of you have studied with us, but I'm sure there are some who have not. And I'm sure all of you know someone who you might identify as someone who might be interested in studying at HJI and would be a good student here. So I'd like to invite you to think about that. I put my contact information in the chat box, along with links to our degree programs and also the application, our online application. We encourage you to think about graduate study, either on the master's level or the doctor's level. I'm sure that once you take that first step down this path, your life will develop in ways that you couldn't imagine. There's so much to learn. I know that I came here with a master's degree completed, never thinking to go beyond that. Now I'm in the Doctor of Ministry program, and I'm so glad that I took that step. So I invite you, you're welcome to write me or any one of our faculty or staff, and we'll be happy to help you. So thank you, Dr. Walsh.
Thank you, Dean Boyd. Dr. Ward, please give us our call to action.
Thank you very much, everyone tonight. Thank you for all of you who took the time to attend this evening. Thanks to all of our contestants. Congratulations to our winners. Thank you to Dr. Fleming for a phenomenal presentation that's going to probably keep me up for a few more hours. Anyway, I really appreciated it. And I just want to encourage all of you tonight, please think about presenting your work a year from now. It's amazing, there is a spiritual world, and that spiritual world really wants to be able to work here on earth. And when you pick up a pen or you go to your computer, you make an invitation, you take a step that allows the spiritual world to work. God needs a voice, and True Mother needs a voice. Our movement needs a voice. And one of the best ways that we can be able to refine our voice is really through the kinds of things that we've heard about tonight through an institution such as HJI, and really through the work that our contestants have done tonight, the presentations that we've heard. And I'm just encouraging all of you to really give God a chance to work in this way so that we can be able to increase, deepen, and refine our voice to the world. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Ward. Thank you, everyone. Great program. Very, very inspiring. Maybe you could show people could just greet one another, say hello.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Excellent. Thank
Have
you.
a great
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
Great presentations.
Wonderful. Hi, Bruna.
Hi, hello.
Bruna.
Thanks for your comment.
Didn't-
She's in Alabama.
Congratulations.